Scorpio, it, it it's not going to stay quiet. Hello, 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 hello. Welcome. This is G, and this is your week of October 28th and the following 7 days. Mars, your body, your appearance, the actions that you take with your body, your passions, the things that you're impulsive and impatient about, why you get frustrated and angry and you want to fight. That's Mars. It's sporadic bursts of energy. So it's not sustaining. Mars is not marathon energy. Okay? It rules the sign of Aries, and it's a co-ruler also with Pluto for Scorpio energy. And these are relevant for this week. Okay? So keep that in mind. Mars and Pluto, co-rulers of Scorpio energy. Now, the next is Juno. Juno is the wife of Jupiter. So it's feminine energy, it's female energy. And it talks about who you're willing to make a commitment to. I know we always talk about the 7th house in Libra, right? Venus, Libra, 7th house, partnerships. That's private, personal, but can also be professional, can be a combination. Juno is strictly about love, love, love. Who I want to have a home with, who I'm going to make a commitment to. And what you're willing to do, like how far, or like what does the word commitment mean to you? What is that spouse? Like what are the check marks? What are the boxes that have to be checked off for your spouse to be that person that you would commit to? What does that entail exactly? Juno. And then Mercury. Mercury is also going to be a factor this week. September, it's just like every week there's really significant things happening. And I know it's big. Obviously, there's an election in November, so it's the countdown phase, right? And Mercury is our mind and our information, communication, social media, how I consume the news, how I share the news, information and learning, Mercury, business, merchants, the stock market, Mercury. I know, right? Coworkers, friends, but more like peers, Mercury. I know I have the color of Venus, so let me switch that around so we're not too confused. Mercury is, it's the writer, it's the scribe, but I can take something and take it in, like read it, study it, and then kind of regurgitate it and put it back out there. So Mercury can be tricky for that reason, because I can take something and I can kind of take it and make it my own. Right? I can apply a piece of that truth and then kind of add a few more things to it. So we always got to be cautious with Mercury energy because it has a tendency to move really fast. And that's the caution. That's the problem, especially now with the invention of social media and people consuming news on social media. Social media basically making the freaking news, right? And it's really come down to clicks and views and likes and hearts and thumbs and all that shit. And it's about who gets the shit out first. Who's the first to report on it? Who's got their headline, their thumbnail out there first? And then people are like, damn, I want to be the first. And they click on it immediately and they listen to it. And whether it's true or not, it doesn't matter. It's like, ooh, I bet you so-and-so didn't hear about this yet. I'm going to be the one to share it. And we press the send or whatever the hell, the share, whatever the frick it is we're doing. And that's why we always got to be cautious with Mercury. We're in an age where we're just moving and our minds are moving so fast. It's like we can't get enough news. Like we're living on it, So let's back the chart up a little bit and take a look at how these three are going to be a factor this week. And, I didn't mention Venus or the sun. They are a factor this week. Last week's video, we talked about how the sun was going to start off at 5, and there it is. There's your sun at 5 degrees. With that, the sun is going to move 1 degree a day, which is normal, right? We know we have Scorpio energy kind of on the focus for this week. Not kind of, but we do have it on the focus this week for 2 reasons. Well, probably more. Number 1, the sun is in Scorpio. So all the Scorpio themes and keywords come alive this week. That's where the spotlight is. That is center stage. It's where we're getting our energy from, deeply meaningful stuff. We're not having conversations about shit that doesn't matter. We're not talking about the weather. We might be talking about the past and the wounds. These can be soldiers, people who have served, people who have injuries. Doesn't just have to be warriors, though. These can be your own vulnerabilities and your own wounds. This is tragic energy, Scorpio. Like when we look up trauma and we're like, God, can you see trauma in someone's chart? Shit, yeah. You look at Pluto, you look at Scorpio, like it's trauma. Trauma speaks to something that happened in the past. It was a traumatic event, right? And it was so traumatic, it affected us physically and mentally and emotionally. So it's really something we're dealing with deeply, like psychologically. We have to sometimes even get help from a professional to unearth, to dig deep and to unearth all of this. And so with Mercury here, yes, Mercury's at 22. With Mercury here, this is Mercury becoming the super, super, super duper detective in Scorpio energy. Scorpios love for digging and research, unearthing shit. Like I am literally excavating, right? Or I'm drilling. Like that's Scorpio energy. I got to find what's below the surface. I'm not believing it just because it's what's on the surface. I got to dig for it. So Mercury is here, who loves to learn, who's all about the details. And when you get these two together, oh my God, it might be one of those things where be careful because you might not be able to unsee or unhear what you came across. Like, because we're going to get to the root of it. Like, that's what Scorpio is. It's going to show us the root of something. Okay. So the sun is there. There's a spotlight possibly on people who are authority figures, political season. We can think of all the different faces that pop into our head. But the trauma and the tragic stuff and the wounds, Scorpio energy is deeply intense. It's raw. It's raw, like open wound type of raw stuff. Yeah, that's Scorpio stuff. So it's powerful, powerfully intense. And the goal of that energy, the goal of Scorpio is to take and show us what was hidden, to show us what was below the surface. With the spotlight here and our mind here, this is a really good time for somebody literally trying to understand something about themselves, trying to understand a little bit more about your deep wounds from the past, because there's energy here. We got the mind and the sun, the spotlight working together. And Mercury is more than 10 degrees ahead of the sun. So Mercury is free. It's able to pretty much see a little bit further and more clearly, a little bit more ahead of the sun, more into the future, so to speak. The mind's working possibly even a little bit better than usual. This is dependent on your chart. You may have things in your chart where this Mercury may become inundated with information and can't make heads or tails out of it because there's so much. That's a possibility. All right. It becomes tricky at that point. I got the moon here for a reason. All right. We're going to talk about it. But on this Monday, you've got the sun at 5 degrees. This is Leo energy, right? Jokes, laughter, children, playing. But it's not a joke when we're talking about Scorpio energy. Scorpio isn't there to play games. If those games end up, being hurting words that may have a negative effect on somebody else or an action or whatever. But if it's somebody in charge, somebody abusing their power, Scorpio, it, it it's not going to stay quiet. It's not going to stay quiet. And it's usually going to take action because it's Mars and Pluto that rule Scorpio energy. So this is how we kick off our week. Okay. We have the Mercury at 22, and that 22 degrees is an important degree. This is government. This is big business and corporations. 22 degrees. All right. We think of capitalism in America. And it's basically like there's some good things about capitalism. But when capitalism rules, right? When that money rules your life, that's where it becomes a huge problem. So Scorpio may be unveiling some of the wounds, possibly social media wounds, right? Mercury is social media, right? Yep. So we might see how some of the vulnerabilities and the wounds of our youngsters, online stuff, and how like some of this stuff just things have to be done. Like we need to have create some laws and some rules here. So Venus is about values, and she's here at 13, right? Now, this week at that 13 degrees, this is, I'm starting something, right? This is like that Aries degree, really fiery, really like charting new territory, justice system, freedom, my future, right? I'm evaluating what my beliefs are, my desire to have freedom of speech and the values around that, and where do we draw the line? How is, where does freedom of speech end and where does hate speech begin? Are they the same thing? And um, yeah, there's got to be some accountability. Sure, you have the freedom of speech, but there will also be accountability. There will also be repercussions. There will be consequences for things that cause damage. You follow? So the values is Venus, Sagittarius, college, higher education, professors, college students. This is also going on vacation in the airlines and my freedom to have the freedom of my own religion, freedom of my beliefs. Great value on this, right? Mind your own business type of thing. I'm not hurting you. Mind your own business. Venus goes to 21 degrees in Sagittarius by the end of the week, all right? Which is November, folks. We're in November already with this chart. We're in November. Is look at the North Node and Black Moon Lilith. Remember, we talked about it last week, sitting here at 6. Big deal. Big releases coming up, business partnerships, lawyer energy, politicians, people hoping to, get their seat in Congress, House of Representatives, judges, presidential figures, people running for vice president and president. Like there's a lot here that alliances and allegiances and the diplomacy and the equality and the fairness. There's something here about my fantasy and the future and how all that's going to likely, for some certain individuals, like that dream may just go up in smoke, right? Like that dream is over. That's a really good possibility because the South Node is not playing games and it's been sitting here. So we got Juno at 28 in Libra, nearing a critical degree, which means we're going to have Juno going into Scorpio. Yes. So all of this happens this week. All of it happens this week. One of the bigger ticket items, maybe that's the wrong word, but one of the bigger items is that Scorpio energy becomes super pronounced this week. I got the moon down here for a reason about the wounds and the injuries, but also the shared resources, shared natural resources, right? The values of those resources. When will the earth be considered a real treasure and value to the degree where we literally take care of the earth and stop, like raping the earth of all her wonderful bounties and beautiful gifts and treasures that she provides for us and start making choices, like start voting according to what our values are, which can be super complicated. I know that. Especially when you're like, but nobody's talking about what's important to me. I get it. We first got to make sure that democracy exists. Otherwise, another vote won't matter. You know what I'm saying? Like if your democracy isn't still there the next time somebody is talking about something that you matter, then your vote won't matter. Right? No. So we kind of have to first make sure that our democracy is secure. So the Scorpio energy is highlighted because this week, and we're talking November 1st. We're talking November 1st, which is Friday. We're going to have a new moon, and that's a new moon in Scorpio. All right. So there's a separate video for it. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. A new moon represents a new beginning. Okay. So it'll be over here at 9 degrees in Scorpio. Okay. November 1st. A new moon in Scorpio at 9 degrees. Keep that 9 degrees in mind. That video will give you more information, but the 9 degrees is the same as saying Sagittarius energy. Right. And we got Venus in Sagittarius. So my beliefs about my future, my freedoms, the liberties, and how certain people's liberties may be taking away others' liberties, like it doesn't make sense. Right. So that 9 degrees will be very important. And it's, for more details, you're going to go ahead and watch that video. But I just gave you a lot of things about Scorpio, unearthing stuff that was hidden. And then what do we do with that information? The new beginning that we have to go forward with. With that said, the Juno is already at this time. Juno's going to then, because it's not a super fast mover, but on Thursday, this Juno will be at 29 degrees in Libra. You see, this is like the bigger story of this week, because it's, again, those partnerships that I spoke about over here. Juno at a critical 29 degrees. Because we see here on Monday, Mars is at 27 degrees. 27. Now, Mars is not especially fast, but Mars will reach a critical degree tomorrow, Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday. Okay, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. When Friday comes, it's smack damn exactly at 29. But whenever Mars hits 27, 28 degrees, it starts popping off. Remember, it doesn't have patience. It's sporadic bursts of energy, which makes it unpredictable. So I'm always like raising an eyebrow and keeping especially aware of Mars when it ever gets to 29, but especially in Cancer, because this is women. It's also the public. It can be people with weapons, but it can also be the abortion issue, women's rights in general. Your right to do what you want with your body, because it's not just abortion, right? Like if I want to have a surgery because I feel that I was born inside, I am one way, but on the outside, I'm another way, and I'm torn, I'm not at peace. Well, as a human being, it's your right to do what you want with your body. 28, 29, and critical degree. Well, Mars at 29, 20, let's put it like this. Cancer, if you look it up go to like Google, 29 degrees of Cancer is often talked about as the millionaire degree, because it's somebody in charge. It's a critical energy, because it's the Leo energy. 29 degrees is Leo. It's Leo energy, and it has to do with the public because it's Cancer. So there's something there that's going to be happening. And again, that video will go a little bit deeper on that, but this is the lead up to that, the lead up. Now, on this day at the beginning of this week, look closely. You see Mars trining Neptune, 27 degrees. You see that? Neptune's not the only thing there. I didn't draw it in, but also where Neptune is at the same degrees is a Uranus Pluto midpoint. They're there. They've been sitting there. They've been traveling. So that's disruptions. That's changes. That's an authority figure. That's a little bit of a rebellious energy, a little bit of shocks and surprises. Likely a public figure, likely people in politics, maybe even, actresses, performances, because that's Pisces energy. All right. It's good for creating. It's good for make believe. It's good for, doing something that people enjoy, music, theater, movies. Like that's how this energy is used best. But make no mistakes, people who are in power use this energy as well because they are trying to persuade. They're trying to persuade. Now, that 29 degrees, yeah, the Mars at 27, this is why I think this will be a bigger deal, like right off the bat. I don't even think we have to wait for Mars to get to 29 and then bam, bam, a new moon. And then as the week goes on, this little Mercury, she's going to move on. She's not an especially slow mover. So in 7 days time, well, let me back it up a little bit. I'll say it like this. So Mercury in Scorpio energy, Mercury's already going to be, because she's kind of fast, even though it's Scorpio, but by the October 30th, so Wednesday and Thursday, she's like at 25 degrees. So she's trining. Wednesday, Thursday, Mercury's in a strong trine. She's in a real strong trine with Neptune. And Mars is not an especially fast mover. So it's Mars and Mercury in a very strong trine with Neptune and the Uranus, Pluto midpoint, which sits over here at 27 degrees. How about I just put this here to represent that Uranus Pluto midpoint. Okay. Remember what I said about the new moon that's coming up? Well, Mars rules Scorpio, and so does Pluto. So they're the rulers of this new moon. This new moon should make changes, should be the beginning of deeply meaningful changes, likely within politics and institutions. Likely it has to do a lot with the past, but also with the public sentiment. Women are pronounced again, people with mental illnesses, emotional, intellectual lack. Like there's a lot of energy here for deep change and transformation. By the new moon day, right? Not going to be until Friday. Mars at that 29 degrees, and Mercury will then be at 28 degrees. You see? So there's this trine and so much about the past. There's a very strong grand water trine of history and the past that's involved with this. Okay? And public figures. Public figures is huge. Okay? People, look for the new moon video to find out, to take that deep dive with that. But partnerships are very pronounced. Partnerships ending. New allegiances likely starting because it's based on our future and where we're headed. And Venus ends off the week, right? Venus is going to end off that week at 21 degrees. And I think that is actually significant. You know me with my degrees matter. Venus being at the 21 degrees, well, if we're following along in terms of the election, Monday is the 4th, and Venus is sitting at 21 degrees. So the 21 degrees is Sagittarius energy. So it speaks to the future and the freedoms, the future of your freedom, the future of the beliefs of your religious freedom, and the higher education, college campuses, the right to protest, to peacefully protest. Like this is a huge thing for values and our future. Huge. Justice. And how does our judicial system work exactly? Both of these are Sagittarius degrees. So our values based on the beliefs about our future, about our collective future too, because of the moon being such a big event and Mars being in the sign of Cancer at a critical degree. So that means that by next Monday, Mars is now at 0 degrees in Leo. So Mars at 0 degrees can be very tricky. 0 degrees is difficult as it is because it's a critical degree. And Mars is really impulsive and impatient, easily angered. It can be a little naive all by itself. It's young. When it goes into Leo, well, Leo is very courageous. And its courage may not necessarily be justified. It may have a false sense of courage because Mars is unpredictable and doesn't like to wait and just wants to act, wants to lash out and attack, right? Because that's kind of what Mars does. It's really a reactionary energy. Mars does best when it's listening to someone who's in charge and it takes orders. And until we grow up and we learn how to command our own Mars in our life, how we learn how to take that energy and use it and say, okay, this is a time when I need you to step up, Mars. These are my orders. This is what I'm telling you to do. These are my orders for you. And then Mars should take those orders as directed because it's a soldier. But at a critical Leo degree, 0 degrees in Leo, we think children. We think creativity, we think joy and happiness. Where is the joy? Where is the happiness? Am I acting like a child? Am I playing? What's the difference? What's the difference? And is there a time to play? And then have you ever seen children play when they're unbelievably horribly mean and very cruel? Have you ever seen that? Right? You think of the bullies in schools, right? And we don't want to, I know we don't want to go further into that because this is a nation which, it's higher likelihood that our children will die in school than like, I don't know what the statistics are, but the weapons and people dying in schools, like this is a topic where it needs to become a priority instead of people just sitting around praying for it. We need to make it a priority. But 0 degrees of Leo is how Monday begins. So there's a strong sense of optimism with that energy because Mars is optimistic, Leo's optimistic, and because of its courage, it might be willing to fight, right? Willing to fight for the children, but it might seem a little playful, but not at the 0 degrees. At the 0 degrees, we all have to kind of curb our ego. Mars is the ego. Okay. Mars is the ego. So to me, these last days of October, and yes, speaking of the last days of October, that means for Halloween, we have the new moon happens the next day. So for Halloween, it's Mars at 28 degrees, just so we're clear. Okay. Mars is at 28 and Mercury's at 26. So there is a trine. This strong trine with Mercury and Mars and Neptune is present for Halloween. For those of you who have children, for those of you who, have concerns or whatever, trine can go lots of ways. It just means that things easily occur when you have trine energy. So we're just being smart like we are every Halloween, right? We're just being smart. And just having our best practices as far as, whether it's going through candy, whatever the hell it is. I only say this as an alert because it's Mars at 28 degrees on Halloween. Remember what I said? I'm cautious of Mars when it gets to 27. So when we're with the public, when we're in the public, and Halloween is a public event here in the States. So this just means we're just being cautious, right? And we're just being smart. Okay. Whether that means checking the candy, making sure your children are within a group or that you're with them, whatever it is. I'm not saying anything more than that. I'm just stating that, we're just being smart. We're just being smart. To me, I see a lot of this as being more about beliefs and the big change that's coming, And that change is hopefully going to be what the astrology is showing me is an end to the adult in the sandbox who just keeps throwing sand at people, keeps talking down about people, keeps, just talking like a juvenile. And I'm so done with the juvenile energy. So that's it. That's a wrap. You want me to go deeper or you got questions, things that seem confusing to you, you can comment below. Be sure to watch the new moon video. That'll give you a little bit more clarity because, again, that happens on November 1st this week. All right. And that's it. You take care, and I will see you in the next one. Remember, I always, always, always appreciate your time. Bye-bye.